do happy, successful women manage it all? From caring for children while caring for parents and also juggling a career? How can we do it without going crazy? Watch today's show for some solutions. I am Jem Masada, your host of Woman2Woman Today, where we talk to inspiring women who are helping other women reach their goals and are changing traditional industries and roles in a very positive way. On today's show, we will be speaking with Liz O'Donnell, a writer and entrepreneur. Liz is the founder of WorkingDaughter.com, a community of women balancing career and caregiving. She also runs Rent a Sister, a company that provides support services to family caregivers in the greater Boston area. Liz's first book, Mogul, Mom, and Maid, The Balancing Act of the Modern Woman, looks at the impact of women's personal lives on their careers. This is gonna be one of my favorite shows of all time. Liz O'Donnell, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about this right now, right? Or living this right now.
And what you said, you were one of the favorite keynote speakers at the Metro West Conference for Women, so thank you for being a part of that. What hit most people that we've received feedback from was you are either about to get in it or you're already in it.
Right. Yeah.
In the world of caregiving.
Right. 10,000 people turn 65 every day. So if you're not now, you probably will be.
How did you begin the book and your journey to inspiring people to understand caregiving?
Well, it's funny. My book, Mogul, Mom, and Maid, was actually about the challenges of working mothers. And that came out, I think, fall of 2013, and my parents got really sick early 2014. So as I was out trying to promote working mothers, I had this one really crazy day where I took a vacation day. You know how you take a day off to go and you do something really fun, like take your mother to the doctor. So
something fun.
Yeah, right. So woke up at 6, sent some emails off to work, drove down to Cape Cod where my mother was living at the time. On the way, ironically, the Huffington Post had asked me to do an opinion piece around, remember Anne Marie Slaughter's article on the front of the Atlantic, Can Women Have It All?
Yes.
It was the 1-year anniversary, so they asked me to write about that. I mean, how ironic that that was the topic this day, that, you know, up at 6, kids out the door, emails out the door, drive to mom's, late on the article, so I'm dictating it into my iPhone, get to my mother's house, and she's just getting into the shower, and we have to leave. And I'm like, Mom, you know. But she was just like, she was 80-something. Yeah. She's like, I just couldn't rush this morning. I'm like, you couldn't rush. So take her, miraculously get the doctor to move an hour, take her to the doctor. Wow. He asked me why I wasn't doing a better job and why I worked. It was such a bad day.
And what did you say to this man?
My mother liked the doctor, so I didn't want to.
It was a man.
It was a man, yeah. Whose parents lived on the other side of the world. Not just state, country, world. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I was, I had a lot to say to him, but because I didn't want to upset my mother and she liked him, you know, so I take her to lunch, I pick up her pills, my dad needs help with the computer, I hop in the car, because that night I have a keynote about working mothers, and I think it was all new mothers at some event. And I get home that night like at 11 o'clock. And you know when you have a big presentation, you think, I'm going to go home and do my hair and put on lipstick. I brushed my teeth. Like that was it, right? So I go to this thing, I speak to these new mothers, but like, if you just listen to me, you too can have a life like this. I mean, it was insane, right? And as I'm driving home at like 11 o'clock that night, I'm thinking, what about working daughters? We're all talking about working mothers, but this is my life now. Forget the book.
Right.
I'm moving on.
Yeah. So that was your next phase.
That was my next phase.
And you stepped right into that so well. You know, you talk about, at the conference, you talk about just sort of forgiving yourself and letting yourself be okay with getting out the door with just brushing your teeth and not your hair. And the images that we're bombarded with about caregiving, it's going to be so wonderful. Your mother and your father, you know, they raised you, and now it's your turn and your responsibility to raise them. Mm-hmm. So how did you come up with the ways that we can not go crazy in this?
Well, I mean, it's everything you just said. When you search online, which is what I hear, and I did, and I hear so many women do, it's usually about 3 in the morning, you know, when you wake up and you can't sleep, and you know your parents need more, you know you should be doing more. You start to Google caregiving. All these images, like you said, pop up of like a mother and a daughter, and they're just like gazing off to nowhere. You know, like, who does that? Instead, you're like, you know, running around.
Get ready.
So I wanted to really make sure that other people knew what this was like, because no one was really talking about it. More and more people are talking about it now, but no one was talking about it. You didn't know that the person in the next office at work was going through the same thing. It just, who wants to talk about it? It's death and dying, disease. It's, you know, it's not new baby pictures and showers and, you know, first birthday parties at all. So I wanted to normalize it and make sure that people knew that even though everyone I met said, oh, what a gift and what a blessing and aren't you lovely? And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not lovely. I have unlovely thoughts. It's a burden sometimes, which is a really bad word in certain circles, you know, but it can be both things at the same time. It is all of those things, a gift and a blessing, and at the same time, it's also hell sometimes.
Right, right. So just saying that is gonna blow people's minds, I think, because people are talking about it more. Yeah. But it's still like you have to, you know, they look at you and say, but you have to be okay with it, because
and and you have to. What you started to say, you have to be okay with the fact that parts of your life are not going to. You're not going to be able to maintain them, right? You can't. I think I showed a picture at the conference, of a day I was going to work. To a client meeting, and I tried really hard that day. At that point, I was really in a crisis. That was after both my parents were diagnosed with terminal illnesses on the same day. Good. And so this was only weeks after that, and I'm trying to move them into memory care facilities and hospice, but I had to go to work, and so the best I could do that morning was pull my wet hair into a ponytail, you know, put a little mascara on, and not smile because I was so stressed out. I'd been grinding my teeth in my sleep, and on the way out the door, my front tooth cracked off. So that was pretty, right?
And that's reality.
That's reality. But I showed up for the meeting, and I did what I needed to do, and you know, I was still alive, and my kids were still at school, and sometimes that's all you can do, and that's okay.
And you know, in working parents, we hear all the time, you have to take time for yourself. So when you say you have to let something go, what's the priority level of letting something go? Is it your makeup? Is it your health? You know, working out? Yeah. What can you do?
I mean, I think it really depends on the situation, right? There are moments when we're in crisis and it's just, you know, you operate in that emergency room mode, like what is burning and get that done. And then, you know, there are other times when you realize, okay, I don't need to be a martyr. I also have a right to have a life, and my parents' health shouldn't negate my own health. So what can I start to take back? But yeah, there were moments when it was certainly hair and makeup.
It's not a priority.
And I remember, you know, before the crisis started, sometimes accompanying my mother or my father to the doctor, and I'd look around at these sad women accompanying their parents, and I'd think, how'd they let that happen? And then one day, you know, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I'm like, oh, that's me. Exactly. So you know what? Hair and makeup were not important. Sleep wasn't, you know, it was important, but there was no time. And that right after those two diagnoses, it was just so busy. And, you know, I lived on Diet Coke and Twizzler. I'm not proud, but there was something about chewing on the red vines that really helped me relax. And then I was talking to a friend, and she said, you know, you need to take care of yourself, which are the 6 or 7 most annoying words. Because you know that you need to take care of yourself, but you want to scream at your friends, but how?
Yeah.
You know? And so and I did, because she was a really good friend. And she said, are you hydrating? And I was like, that's brilliant. And I filled a Camelback that day, and I'm like, if that's because I was drinking coffee and Diet Coke, and then at night I have a glass of wine because I was so caffeinated. So I was like, all right, I'll start with water. And just those tiny little actions, they sound insignificant, but I started to feel like, okay, at least I'm doing one thing. And then I started to bring, you know, my running shoes and keep them in the trunk of the car, and there was a track near the hospice, so I'd go for walks. And then little by little, you start to realize that you can do something. Yeah.
So that's for yourself. What about, because at the same time, you had a relationship and you had children, and and they're all still with you.
You didn't say a good one, right? Yeah, there was this day when I was going to meet, I was going to interview a hospice nurse to see if my mother was ready to, you know, go on hospice. Yeah. And this woman came in the room, and she was so bossy, and she was real persnickety in the sense she carried a roll of paper towels. She put one down on the seat before she sat down, and one down on the floor before she put her bag down, and she was like, okay, so here's what's going to happen. And I was just like, oh God, who is this woman? And especially because one of the things she said was, so you'll get a package of medication, including morphine, and you'll have to be here to give it as needed. And all of a sudden I said, I need to see you in the hall. And I was just so tired and had no time for niceties. And I just said, I really don't appreciate the fact that you think that I can be here 24/7, that you don't know or care that I have a job, that my father's downstairs in the memory care facility and he's just been diagnosed, that I have a husband and 2 kids who haven't seen me in weeks, and I have a job. I didn't say it quite that nicely, and I burst into tears after it all came out. And she leaned in, which is, it's the sign usually. Yeah, she's like, you poor thing. Yeah. I know that sign now. Yeah. And she said, listen, you know, I get it. I'm a single mother. I was presumptuous about some things. Here's how I would prioritize. She's like, we're looking at months for your mother. I can sense that you're capable of this and that you want to do this. Your dad is being cared for professionally. Worry about him in 3 months when your mother's gone. He'll be fine. Your husband and kids are just going to see you as an example of unconditional love. So don't worry that you're going to miss a few months of soccer games, you know. And she's like, your job, that's another story. You can't lose your job. So let's rethink how we, you know, handle the medications. And it was like this incredible moment. And she was only my mother's hospice nurse for 3 weeks because my mother had to quickly go into a hospice home. But she and I remained, you know, in touch. I could call her anytime. And even though this woman was only in my life like 3 to 5 weeks, I think she was like the most pivotal, yes, thank you, an influential person I experienced. Yeah,
that sounds like that. What a gift that woman was.
Oh yeah.
Talk about
she was amazing.
Putting things,
and the way she was able, because I couldn't, I was in it, right? But she was like, oh wait, put that to the side, focus on this, and let that go. Yeah. She didn't mention hair and makeup, but I'm sure she was on board.
I'm sure she was like, she'll get to that at some point. Yeah, she prioritized it for
She never commented when I had the same thing on every day.
So we're going to come back in a minute because I want to talk about this incredible new program that you have come up with that is going to be a huge support structure for our local community and so brilliant. So stay with us, everybody. We're going to be right back and you're not going to want to miss it. We're back with Liz O'Donnell, founder of Rent-A-Sister and WorkingDaughter.com. So before we left, we said we were going to talk about Rent-A-Sister because it's a new program that you've developed. Tell us about that.
So Rent-A-Sister is, I say, for all those times you wish you had a sibling to help you with your parents, or you wish the siblings you did have would help, because that's something I hear frequently, right?
I bet.
Rent-A-Sister is almost like on-demand sisters. So anything a caregiver, any of their tasks or to-do lists, they can call us, and we have an army of caregivers who are not necessarily certified nursing assistants or professional caregivers, but they're professional women and men who've been through caregiving, so they have the skills and the compassion, and
they know what you're going through, and they can
help you with whatever you need.
Like what? What's an example of
so sometimes it's companionship. Sometimes it's, you know, can you take my mother to the doctor because I have a big meeting at work, and can you report back to me, because I know what I would hear from my mother if I wasn't at the doctor was, well, he was really nice. And I'm like, I don't care how nice he was. Why did he change your medication, right? Or it can be light housekeeping. We get calls sometimes from people who are out of state and they've got an aunt or an uncle with no children. They're like, I just need someone to pop in 3 times a week and know that they're okay. You know? So anything really.
Grocery shopping.
Little light housekeeping. And sometimes just, you know, you want your parents to stop driving, you're worried about them, but then, okay, that means, are you going to be driving them?
Yes, right.
So, you know, and your parent doesn't want to give up driving because they love to go to the library every Wednesday. We'll get them there. That kind of thing.
Or an aging, council on aging, or
exactly, all those services.
You don't want their social.
Or the other thing we hear quite a bit is you only have a couple of hours a week to be with your parents because you're working and you have kids and whatever. And do you want to spend it as the caregiver or actually as the daughter still, or the son?
So you can have that moment of
so you can
staring
off
into the
exactly.
sunset.
But so we'll go do all the go to the pharmacy and the grocery store and straighten up their assisted living, and you can actually spend time with them.
That's brilliant. So what does it cost to
So it's $25 an hour.
Okay.
And we have people buy in 4-hour chunks, and part of the reason we do that obviously is to make sure we have the sisters available, but also so many people have said to me, oh my God, I need that, but I don't know where to start. So we'll say, listen, we're going to give you 4 hours.
There you go.
What's going on, and we can help them figure out where to begin.
Perfect. So you'll do like almost a triage. Where
exactly, because people you get so in it. You're like, I need help, but I don't know how to stop and
start it.
Yeah, start.
Okay. And are they only women?
Right now, all of the sisters are women, but and I probably need to change the name because men are absolutely welcome. And in fact, 40% of the caregivers are men. So we talk about it as a woman's issue, but it's really, I mean, especially with the way society is aging, everybody's going to be a caregiver.
Yeah, and everyone's heavier. And I feel as though that's going to be an issue when you're trying to move and lift your parents or you know, an aging relative.
We moved somebody out of...
Not that women can't do it.
Right, yeah. Just recently moved somebody out of assisted living into a nursing home. So, you know, there was some heavy lifting.
Yeah. So it might be nice to have a rent-a-brother. Rent a sibling.
Exactly.
Rent a sibling.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. Tell us about your blog too, because that is so full. I hope that everybody gets on your website, workingdaughter.com, and checks out the blog because, as we said in the first segment, if you're not in it, you're going to be
in it. Yes, and there's some content on there for planning, although people just don't. I mean, that's a big barrier we have to overcome. Nobody wants to think about this, but the more you plan ahead, you know where the documents are, you know what your parents' end-of-life wishes are, the more you can do that, the easier it's going to be.
Why do you think it's a barrier? Sorry,
that's okay. It's just you just don't want to think about it, right? It's
sad.
It's sad. It's really sad, and you know, it's so layered, right? You're looking at your parents aging and becoming less dependent. You're recognizing what that means for them. You're recognizing what that means for you. I think one of the things, and this is sort of terrible to say, but one of the things I think we all think about is, oh, my parents will die someday and I'll be really sad, right? And you kind of prepare for that as best as you can prepare for something you haven't been through. But what we don't think about is actually maybe my parents won't die. Maybe they'll just get sick and frail and hang around for a long time because of modern medicine. And how am I going to get through that? Like, that's just, people don't die anymore.
No, right?
Yeah.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah. So Working Daughter is, it's a place on the web where I try to, you know, share the same thought process, which is here's some really practical, actionable advice about caregiving and about caregiving while working. You know, how do I show up at work and how do I run out the door when there's an emergency? But with a real voice again. So, you know, you won't find any images of this, you know.
You'll see the real.
And I try to share this. You know, I have a Working Daughter Bill of Rights, right? You have the right to have a life, and you have a right to be healthy, and you have the right to say no, and all of that good stuff. And then, you know, a few articles about, you know, what's normal or the life of a caregiver in gifts, right? Just because we have to laugh, because if we don't laugh, we'll cry. And I really want people to understand that it is okay to think, like, I wish they would walk faster on a walker, and you can still love them at the same time. No guilt, right?
I love that. And you have a manifesto on your website that I think everyone should print out.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're going through it or not, and just place it on your desk at work.
My favorite is, you know, and it's that whole, and this came out of the working mother concept, you know, out of the book, but it applies. It really applies to anybody, right? Especially to women. And one of my favorite things is, you know, there's always someone richer, thinner, or smarter. And if you don't believe me, look on Facebook and you'll find her, right? This idea of like, just be okay with where you are, because we're all just getting through.
Just getting through. Yeah, exactly. So your parents have passed, and you now have a different life.
And it's
a
weird.
lot of different ways. So tell us about that transition.
So my dad just passed in July. So my mom passed about 3 years ago, right after, you know, all of this happened. 3 months exactly, almost, like they said. It's wild how they know that. And then my dad was living, he actually was able to transition out of memory care and into assisted living because it turns out he also had a urinary tract infection at the time they diagnosed him with Alzheimer's. So his symptoms were part of the infection. And so his symptoms, his Alzheimer's dementia symptoms didn't show up for a long time. And I was able to go in and advocate to move him out of memory care and give him more freedom, which felt really good. You've got to be.
That was a win. You got to celebrate those wins.
You have to remember that you're the expert on your parent, and they're the experts on what they do, and you meet at the table.
Good job.
So anyway, so he lived right down the street from me for the last 3 years, and you know, took him to soccer games and spent every Saturday with them, and then, a few health crises, but not too many. I had to get great primary care, and we kept him out of the hospital because I think it's the worst place an elderly person can be.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in March, he got another infection that really needed to be treated, and that just spiraled. So he got hospital delirium and ended up in the psych unit because the dementia had, progressed, and he never really bounced back from that. And I moved him into a nursing home, and the good news is, well, the bad news and good news at the time, right, was I saw him every single day from March to July, which I don't know how every morning I woke up and the first thing was, how am I going to fit Dad in today?
Yeah.
Bad news from the scheduling craziness. Good news from the, ended clean, feel really good, had some really nice visits with him. Even when he didn't know who I was, he thought I was his favorite sister, so that was flattering, right? It's like, I'll take it. I will take it. So he passed in July, and so for the last few years, I slept with my iPhone under my pillow because I was worried there'd be an emergency in the middle of the night.
Sure.
And so it's been weird to realize I don't have to have my iPhone on or under my pillow or even in the same room anymore. That's been an adjustment.
Yeah.
And I still wake up sometimes and think, when am I going to go? Oh, I don't have to. And I said to my husband, I said, I have no responsibility. He goes, well, you're a breadwinner and have 2 teenagers, but but
marriage, you gotta continue.
I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, all that stuff.
All that stuff, yeah, but it's strange.
It's strange,
right?
yeah. I spent a Saturday a few weeks ago shopping, just, buying clothes and shopping, and I was like, wow, I haven't done this in a while. I'm like, oh, because I haven't been able to.
Right.
And then that got me teary. So I was having a great time, bought some shoes, but I was a little teary because I was able to. So it's
still thinking about
it's a new, and I talk about this with caregivers all the time. You always have to adjust to your new normal, because every time the illness changes or the living situation changes, there's always a new normal. And the quicker you can accept, okay, this is where I am now.
Yeah. Is that how you adjust? You kind of just internally say, okay, this is, I have to be okay with where this is.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And your relationship with your kids and your husband?
I'm still married. I'm still married. I have an older...
Because we have a divorce show.
No. There was a day, I remember I was driving over to hospice, and a friend called to check in and see what was going on, and I said, and my mom was just hanging on, and they kept thinking she would die and she wouldn't. It's just such a hard time. There's no time frame.
No.
But I said, I don't know what's going to last longer, my mother or my marriage, because it was a strain, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I was not pleasant, right? And I also, in hindsight, I didn't communicate really well. I was just in it, and this is what I see with Renta's sister. You're just so in it, you can't stop and ask for the help that you need.
Yeah.
I was more communicative, and he was much more helpful with my father because he actually knew what I wanted. Right. Imagine that. But you get through it, right? There was a time that I thought, I'm going to lose my job, my marriage, and I can't remember my kids' names, but the only way through is through. You do get through it.
Yeah, and you did.
Yep.
Wonderfully, and now you're sharing that message with all of us to say you can,
hang in there,
and you can look like this and wear a wicked cool blue leather jacket and look stunning.
No ponytail today. I don't know if it looks good, but no ponytail.
You look amazing. So, is there a conversation that you had to have with your kids that, okay, listen, I was out for a little while, I'm back, and then are they receptive to mom being around more?
Oh yeah, they were great.
What's there?
And I think I was pretty upfront with them. I was probably much kinder to them than I was my poor husband through it all, and just said, Nana really needs me right now, and Papa really needs me right now, and I didn't hide it. I melted down in front of. I mean, I think hopefully they'll be in therapy. Who won't, right? But I think it's important for them to see that it's not easy. Right. You make choices.
Right.
Sometimes it's messy, and you're still standing. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope.
And now they will have the ability to take care of you and your husband because they know exactly what to do. They've read your books. They're probably part of just about every blog.
My daughter, my mom had fallen years ago before this whole crisis, and we went and stayed with them and for a few weeks to help out. My kids were, I think, kindergarten or little, and it was summertime anyway. So my daughter said to me, she goes, "How come you go in the bathroom every time Nana goes in the bath?" Oh, you have to help her in the bathroom? And I said, well, yeah, she's frail, she fell, we don't want her to fall again. She goes, yeah, if that happens to you, call Joe, her brother.
Her brother.
So we already know who the caregiver is. And there's a saying that there's always one among siblings.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you're one of 6 or an only. there's always one. I'm like, well, we know who the one is now in our house.
You know who to call. That's great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story. This has been, at the conference, it was one of our favorites, and this is going to be one of our favorites too, because we're all going to be in it.
I'm just glad you're talking about it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So please get on that blog and make sure you visit that website because all of the great insight that Liz shared is there for you, and she's got a lot coming out too. So be sure to follow her. Please remember to follow us too. Like and subscribe to Woman2Woman Today on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube so you don't miss a show. Thanks to the entire team at Access Framingham, especially Shavarsh Morrissey and Francesca Cerruti Harris. Thanks also to Jess Friswell, our assistant producer. I'm Jem Maceda, your host of Woman2Woman Today. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time, where we hope to inspire you.